Can I have your attention?
Can I have your attention?
Can I have your attention?
This
This
is your conscience speaking.
is your conscience speaking.
Racing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.
What is up, everybody? My name is Christian, and welcome back to This is Your Conscience Speaking. Before I move on to anything with the episode, let me just tell you guys how thankful I am for all of the reactions, the comments, the shares, the support, the love, just all of the feedback that I received from the first episode. I will forever be thankful for. If you are joining me for the very first time, first off, welcome. And if you didn't get a chance to watch the prior episode, I highly recommend that you do watch it. However, today's episode is going to touch on the prior episode, so to just give you a brief summary, last episode had to do with the victim mentality. And a lot of the feedback that I had received was that it seemed like I had a lot more to say in regards to that. And honestly, I do. The thing is, though, I didn't want that first episode being so much about me. I wanted you guys to get an idea of what this podcast was going to be about. It's not only going to be about my journey and my experiences, but it's also going to be how we can all grow together. Just for the example of the podcast, I can tell you from recording, writing, editing, just the whole process of it, from that very first episode, I definitely took a lot to know how it can go much smoother down the line moving forward. I know that one day that I'm going to look back at this low quality, low budget podcast and just be like, look where you started and look where you are now. I hope that we all get the chance to do that. Going back to the feedback, there is one theme in my life that I can tie to the victim mentality. And it ties not only to the victim mentality, but also with entitlement as well. And that has to do with my struggles with weight loss, as well as body dysmorphia. I know that I am not the only one that experienced this or experiences this, but many others do as well. In the previous episode, I had touched on how the victim mentality is something you aren't born with. It's usually shaped by your experiences. I will never be someone who speaks on everyone's behalf. I can only speak on my own. And I can tell you when it comes to my struggles with weight, that it 1,000% had to deal with the experiences that I had growing up. It could have been handled a lot more differently if I felt like I had someone that I could have healthy conversations with in regards to it. Unfortunately for me, I didn't, and I struggled with it for most of my life. For as far back as I can remember, I was always considered the heavier one in my family and in my group of friends. I am the second of 5 brothers, countless cousins, and I can tell you right now that if I look at a donut, I will gain 5 pounds. Look, I'm kidding, because you motherfuckers are going to be like, this asshole is just lying to us. You cannot smell a donut and gain 5 pounds. That's fucking impossible. I'm exaggerating. I am doing it to just prove a point that I gain weight easily. So please do not crucify me in the comments. I don't need that kind of fucking drama on episode 2. However, going back to what I was saying, when it came to my weight, very early on in my life, my weight was always pointed out to me. It started with, hey, you got big. And at first, when you're a kid, you think it's height-wise. But then you realize that they're not talking about your height, that they're talking about your waist, because they're looking literally at my stomach. And then as I got older, the comments became more of, hey, you have to lose weight. Hey, you have to watch what you're eating. Hey, you have to be more healthy. All of this while I'm being fed countless amounts of food. And I'm not sure if this is just my culture, but it's if I'm Filipino, by the way. However, if a tita or auntie, an American, brings you a plate of food, it's almost disrespectful to just decline it. So for me, being the respectful kid that I was, I would eat it and indulge them even further when they're telling me, hey, you have to lose weight, but you have to eat my food because it's not respectful. Kind of contradicts each other, doesn't it? That will be a reoccurring theme in my life, but we will see that theme also in future episodes. While growing up and hearing all of these things about my weight, about how I need to be more healthy, literally from when I was 5, as far back as I can remember, what kind of seed do you think that planted for me? It started planting the seed of negativity, and it was just showered with more negativity. So when I grew up, what do you think I blossomed into? I turned into this negative kid who, whenever I was around family parties, people would see me and just think, he's being disrespectful. Why isn't he talking to us? Why isn't he acknowledging us? They thought I was just this angry fucking kid. And honestly, I was. But the thing is, why am I going to want to approach people when all they're going to talk about is my weight? There was literally a time where we were having a family gathering. I went to go open the door, and one of my aunts literally, the first words that came out of her mouth were, Christian, you got fucking fat. Not the fucking part. Using that for extra effect. That's how I show my love, my passion. Anyway, my response was, hey, it's good to see you too. It's been a long time. How are you? Do you honestly think I wanted to be around my family at that point? No. I went and I just isolated myself in my room. Because the countless amount of times that I've heard it, although I felt numb, it was just this constant piercing of the same fucking scar that kept getting reopened. As I started to grow up, and I had dealt with this mentality, I started having this downward spiral, which became really fucking dangerous. My family can tell you stories about how whenever we went to the theme park, how if we were to grab food, I would trail far behind to hide what I was eating, knowing that they would judge me. I remember at 16 years old, feeling so insecure about my weight, and at that time I wasn't even heavy, but with being in high school and all the things that my family and people who were supposed to care about me had said, I started taking weight loss pills. Literally 9 fucking pills a day. I remember going to a friend's house and them just looking at me being like, hey, Christian, are you okay? You're shaking. And I had opened up about how I started taking these weight loss pills because I was so insecure about my weight. My friend at the time had no idea what to tell me. He was just like, hey, just chill outside. I'm going to get you some water. Let me know if you need anything. At that age, I don't expect anyone to know how to deal with someone who's struggling in that way. So props to him for at least having my back in that moment, seeing that I was in a weird amount of stress that no one should experience at that age. And unfortunately, I know in this generation now, we are overexposed to the aesthetics, to the fit influencers, and that is definitely going to be a topic for another episode. But going back to that and my downward spiral, I tried to validate my worth in so many ways, and all of it was external validation. None of it was for me. I would hit on my friends because I felt like if they would tell me that I was cute or that they found me somewhat attractive, I have worth, right? I remember going to college. Not the first time I went, but the second time because I had dropped out the first time. But I had started going to college to get a degree in something that I never wanted to get a degree in. But I did it just knowing that if I went down this road, if I had a college degree, if I could make a certain amount of money, maybe have a certain job title, maybe these people will get off my ass. Maybe that would validate my worth. External validation, right? But I was doing all of this not for myself. So what did it end up doing? I ended up fucking up a lot of friendships. I gained all this student debt for a degree that I'm not really passionate about. And if anybody from my job is watching, just know I'm thankful for my job. I 1,000% am. But it wouldn't have been my first choice. It got to a point where when I became so desperate just to talk to somebody about my issues with my weight, people who I thought would give me some solid advice, but the advice they gave me was eat better, lose weight. It seems so fucking simple, right? That honestly is the worst piece of advice you can give somebody. If you aren't somebody that has struggled through something like weight loss or racism, it's hard to empathize. It's hard to put yourself in that person's shoes. But one thing that I can tell you is that just because you've never experienced it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's not just easy when you dealt with something for all of your life to just lose the weight or to eat better. There are reasons why you cope that way. So in July of 2011, I just hit this brick fucking wall. I had no one that I could talk to because I fucked up my friendships. I was still going to college at the time. I was working a 9 to 5. But I isolated the hell out of myself because I had just become so insecure with the way that I looked. And it got to a point where I was like, you know what? If I can't talk to anybody, I'm just going to talk to myself. So I recorded this next video clip that I'm going to show you.
Hey, what's up, world? My name is Christian, and I've decided to make a video diary of myself. This has been something I've been wanting to do, but delaying because of the fact that I actually have to give you a piece of me, and I'm extremely scared. It's ruined friendships. It's ruined social life. It's just ruined my own self-esteem. I hate to admit it, but it started with my family. I'm the oldest, or the second oldest, of 5 brothers, and out of all of them, I'm the only one that's chubby. Just my luck, right? Something I've been always insecure about was my weight, and that I was saying it was because of my family. I mean, after 26 years of hearing the same thing, you kind of get that mentality. That's what they see you for. I mean, the moment I see family I haven't seen in months, years, first thing they say is, "Christian, you gained weight." "Christian, oh my God, what happened to you?" You know, they don't ask me how I'm doing in school. They don't ask me how I'm doing my job, or just how I'm doing in general. The first thing that everybody sees is my weight, and it sucks to the point where I've had to get approval from people, just always having to reassure myself that I can do something right, or that I'm okay in some way. This is my way of saying that if I make any change to myself physically, it's for me, not for no female this time. That I won't do this with pills. I'll do this naturally. It's a promise to myself to make my life better.
So, obviously, prior to recording this episode, I had to look back and find these video clips. And I remember watching the video clip that I just showed. And I didn't just see how vulnerable I was, but it was the first time that I was ever honest about my insecurities. And it was the first time that I actually vocalized it. The webcam was the only thing that I felt like I could talk to without having that fear of judgment on me. And it's kind of ironic that here I am talking to a camera again, but in a much different capacity. I guess this is where I do my best work, right? So after I had recorded that video, I had made the decision that, hey, I need to try to do something about this. I need to try to fix myself, or this is going to be my life. I'm going to live this life where all I'm doing is trying to validate my own worth in the wrong way. So, in Christian fashion, I procrastinated, I delayed ever starting. And sure enough, time went on. It was close to the end of the year. And I was like, hey, you know what? Let's just start on New Year's, because that's where I'll have a fresh start. People are making weight loss resolutions anyway. Maybe it would be a good time for me to start. And sure enough, Facebook was huge during this time. I remember jumping on Facebook and seeing an old classmate of mine from grade school who always used to be on the heavier side shares before and after photos. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. This is a fucking sign. Like, I'm going to start the year brand new, have all this determination. If this kid can do it, so can I. So, like an excited fucking puppy, I instantly started hitting him up in the messages, being like, "Hey, what did you do to lose all that weight? You look fucking incredible." And I hadn't talked to him in a while, so he was kind of salesy. He was like, "Hey, Christian, it's been a while. Yeah, man, I've been doing this program." And just a side note, I had been debating on talking about the company and the programs that I use, that I was just like, fuck it, you know what? I'm not defaming them, nor am I giving a bad review on them. I took something really good and I made it a negative experience. So results will vary, as they would say in the infomercials anyway. Going back to the story, he was like, "Hey, Christian, yeah, I'm doing this program called Power 90, using these weight loss shakes called Shakeology." And I was like, fuck, you don't even need to tell me anymore. I just want the weight loss program. I'm sold. Enough with the sales fucking talk. And then he's like, all right, man, let's get you signed up. So Power 90 is better known as P90X, but this was literally the original. When I mean the original, the background music legit sounded like fucking 80s porn. I shit you not. Anyway, I get the program. I remember reading the pamphlet and being like, I need to start this as soon as possible. And at the time, I only got the program. I read through it and I was like, okay, here we go. And on January 20th, 2012, I took my day one photos. I remember looking at myself through the monitor that was, because I had taken these photos through webcam, and seeing myself shirtless in a pair of shorts. And I was like, so this is what everybody sees. This is what everybody is telling me about whenever they say, hey, you got big, or hey, you need to lose weight, or hey, you need to get healthy. And remember the last episode, how I talked about your mind being a tricky fucking place? It truly is, because whatever you do or you don't believe, you're right, because that is what you believe. I chose to believe that the way that others saw me is how I should see myself. That is the hard thing about not believing not only in yourself, but your voice and what you tell yourself. So the negative things that people were telling me, I believed that I was. And when I looked at myself in the webcam for the first time shirtless, you can see it on my face, how sad I was that this is who I became. I used to think of myself as this happy fucking kid that would always just try to bring smiles into people's lives. But I called myself a sad piece of shit. But when you feel like you have nothing, you'll do absolutely anything to change. So I popped in that DVD and I told myself, I'm like, just fucking do it. Prove to everybody that you aren't a fat piece of shit. Prove that you're worth something. Excuse me. So I started to do the program, and I just remember just after that first workout, just being exhausted because I had literally given it everything that I had. And when you are a kid who wasn't active, and to go from being someone who played video games all day, working a 9 to 5, staying isolated in your room. As easy as that program is, or some people would see it now, it was the hardest fucking thing for me to do. But I did it. And then I was like, try again tomorrow. And I remember going onto these message boards and talking to other people that were doing the program and having a similar experience. And it was the first time that I had ever felt like other people could relate to me. I couldn't see some of their faces. All I saw were words on a screen. And that encouragement that I was getting from them was something that I was wanting for all of my life. And I remember just feeling so enthusiastic because for the first time, and at that time at 26 years old, or 25 or 26 years old, just feeling like I'm not alone. Even though I was in this small little fucking room talking to a webcam, I was like, I have other people here doing this with me, supporting me. So sure enough, I went onto Facebook and I found Beachbody groups. They're known, Beachbody is now known as Body, or BODI. And just trying to dive into this world of positivity because it was foreign to me. And I remember talking to a bunch of people and finding this person who wanted to be my coach, even though I already had one. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let me switch coaches. I feel like I can really benefit from having a bigger team. And I switched to this team called Team Impact. I had finally jumped on getting the weight loss shakes because I was like, you know what, if I'm going to go all in, just fucking go. Just do it. And after 90 days of doing the program, I had lost a little over 30 pounds. And just so you know, when you go from being sedentary and not having much activity, you're going to lose a lot of weight, especially if you have the weight to lose, and especially when you were eating the way that I was eating. Results will vary. I don't know why the fuck I'm saying this. I'm not an infomercial, right? Anyway, I had lost the weight and I had dropped countless amount of inches. And then in this group, this positive support system that I had been yearning for all of my fucking life, people who were struggling the same way that I was like, hey, there's a yearly conference that goes on where we talk about coaching, building the business, and there are inspiring stories about not only how you can make money, but also lose weight. And I was like, I'm sold. You don't have to sell me. I believe in this. I'm proof of it because I lost the weight with these programs. So for the very first time, I just decided to go on a trip on my own and meet up with a group of fucking strangers that I'd met through an online Facebook group. And as I'm saying this, I realize how sketchy that sounds now. But remember when I said that when you feel like you have nothing, you will do anything. I would have done anything to felt like I belonged. Because in my own family and my own circle of friends, I felt like I hadn't belonged in such a long time. So I had started another program called Insanity. And then I made that trip to Vegas in June of 2012. I was scared shitless. I was sharing a room with somebody through my team who I had never met before, but I was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make it work. I didn't go to all the events because I was still nervous as fuck. I still had weight to lose. This group of inspiring people, I didn't want them to see me in such a way because I still didn't believe I had worth. And then on the last day, I was like, fuck it. I made my way all the way here to Vegas. Let me just be with my team. I ended up meeting up with them on the last day, very early in the morning, for this thing they call a super workout. And finally putting names to some of the faces that I had been talking through in DMs on Facebook. And they were just these incredible individuals. Some of them were in amazing shape. Some of them had weight to lose. But we all had a goal of just inspiring and pushing each other. And then later on that day, we went to the closing celebration. And I remember seeing these individuals that were competing in something that I didn't realize was a thing. And it was called the Beachbody Challenge, which I will get into in a minute. And I remember seeing the male winner of that competition. His name was Richard. And just being so inspired. They showed his before and afters, right? Customer reviews. Then working with the professionals, like I said in the first episode. But he had dropped, I want to say, around 250 pounds. And seeing him live and in person, just with all that weight loss, crying on stage, holding this humongous check, it inspired the fuck out of me to want to do the same for somebody else. I saw him, I'm like, if that guy can do it, I didn't have that much weight to lose. I'm like, if he can fucking do it, I can too. Cult mentality, I know that's what people will say about MLMs. That is based on anyone's experience. This is mine. So I get back. I get back to Jersey. And I'm on fire. I'm like, I want to help this many people. I want to grow my business. I want to inspire the fuck out of people. I finished Insanity while I was in Vegas. And I was like, P90X, here we go. I'm ready, I'm ready not only to dig deeper, but to bring it. Anyway. And I had went through the program and I had dropped more weight. And this one is a lot more strength-based, not a lot of cardio. And I felt myself building muscle. And then after 9 months, I had dropped close to like 50 pounds. And it was the first time that I was going down pant sizes and I was wearing a size large shirt, something that hadn't happened to me since I was probably in high school. And then it got to a point where I was like, hey, it's time for me to share my story. It's time for me to put my insecurities out there. And hopefully do for someone what Richard did for me. And then this is where this video comes along. when I watched through that video again before recording that episode, or this episode, there was a reason why I wrote on the index cards instead of actually talking and telling my story. It was because growing up, how I had felt like my voice didn't matter, because anytime I vocalized my struggles with weight, I would just get brushed away, like just lose weight, eat better. So I felt like the only way that people were going to listen, because I felt like I had no voice, was to actually write down everything that I felt and tell my story. I remember being scared shitless before I hit post, just like it was when I recorded the very first episode of this podcast. But I remember the response that I had received. People shared it like fucking wildfire. And to be someone who was unknown to having this video shared, and I think the last time I checked, it was at like 30,000 plus views, which isn't a lot these days, but at the time it was. It had gained the attention of a lot of people. I remember reading through the comments and receiving all this validation that all my hard work meant something. And that is what started a very dangerous path for myself. The one thing that weight loss doesn't teach you, it doesn't teach you how to deal with the issues that you've had with your weight to begin with. So as I'm reading through the comments and I'm getting all this positive feedback, and don't get me wrong, I'm thankful for it. I even had met one of my best friends named Abby through the comments of this video. But I was receiving all the external validation that I always thought I needed. And it started bringing me down the slippery slope of wanting more. I was getting all this praise. I was getting all this praise from strangers who I didn't know, and I was like, I finally have worth. My life means something. I let my worth be defined by the work that I put in. It wasn't for me anymore. It was to appease everybody else. All those people that I told you in the beginning that I was like, I'm going to show them that I can do this. And if you picked it up right there, it was me saying, I'm going to show them, not I'm going to show myself. That is the one thing that I hope you guys realize, is that whenever you have those negative voices in your life and you start to believe all the bullshit that you truly aren't, you go down this path and this road of wanting more. And when you finally start to get it, you want more and more of it, to a point where the voice that you were looking for to be so strong within yourself, you think you're getting it because of the reactions that you're receiving from everybody else. That was the biggest fucking lie that I told myself. So time goes on. Beachbody recognized me even prior to that, from my first transformation with Power 90, and I won $500, which I was like grateful for. I was like, hey, I lost weight. They see that, won money. But after this video was shared, it really caught their attention. And then soon enough, the next year rolls around and I go to the yearly conference that they have called Summit. I see some of the same people and more that I've met throughout the group, and I'm starting to feel like a rock star, right? And then when I get back from Vegas that year, I win the monthly prize as well as what's called the Ultimate Health Prize. And each thing I won was $1,000 each. So I won $2,000 for losing weight and becoming healthier. And all this while sharing my story and inspiring others. I felt like I was on top of the fucking world. But because I was a monthly winner, they had put me into an additional contest for monthly winners, where it would be a quarterly winner contest where you could win $5,000. And I lost, unfortunately. And, I started to feel kind of down about that, which started to feed into the negativity of competing against other people rather than doing this for myself. So I was like, fuck. I remember talking to this girl on my team who had lost a ton of fucking weight, and she had won the quarterly prize, but she was like, hey, just because you lost, just so you know, everybody that was a monthly winner gets thrown into the pool of the grand prize winners. And then there's going to be voting. So I know I had mentioned this briefly, but I had talked about how there was this contest called the Beachbody Challenge. That's where I saw this guy named Richard on stage holding up a huge check. And what it is that they take the stories that people submit with their before and afters and their measurements, and they give you prizes based off of that. I didn't realize to the extent that it went to, but as I was going through the process of submitting, I finally realized after winning those prizes that I was eligible. And because my story had been shared so much, Beachbody took notice. And then, sure enough, I get an email saying that I was eligible to be a part of the grand prize contest. So here I am, working my ass off, again, for the wrong reasons. Because now, it wasn't about the weight loss anymore. It was about competing and beating others and winning the big fucking prize. And then, sure enough, I didn't make it to the grand prize contest, but I did make it to the Ultimate Health Prize contest, which is a separate category, but I could have won $25,000. And within that time, I was like, okay, this is it, Christian. Show these motherfuckers who you are. Show them your worth. Show them your value. And remember how I told you that I started going down this very slippery slope? It was for good reason. Nothing about my mentality changed. I was still trying to find validation from women, because if they found me attractive, then I would have some sort of worth. I found my validation through the people that were reaching out to me, being like, hey, your story was great, blowing up my fucking ego. Competing against these individuals who I had no idea who they were, but I was like, I'm going to fucking beat them. And it got to a point where I had dropped 75 pounds, and then within that next year, just gaining muscle because I got more into strength training. And at the point of submitting for this last challenge, because I was in the top 4 of this challenge, I felt this sense of entitlement that I was like, fuck, I look good. I had lost this many amount of inches around my waist. My biceps were growing. I was fucking lean. And the thing is, I did it in such an unhealthy way. I wasn't eating as much as I should have. I was putting in literally 2.5 hours of just working out, doing high amounts of cardio, not knowing a fucking thing, then not knowing a fucking thing, but whatever these programs told me to do, I was sold. I was invested. And all I was doing was investing even more into my insecurities. If you are coming from someone in the Beachbody world, one thing that they don't tell you is, at least in this contest, and I'm not sure if it's changed because it's been a long time since I've actually had done anything with Beachbody or Body or whatever you want to call them. But for the Ultimate Health Challenge, at least, they tell you that who the winner is 2 weeks prior to the event. Not for the grand prize, but just for this category. And I didn't win. I was fucking crushed. But I remember for the next 2 weeks having to pretend like I was excited. I had to get interviewed while I was out there in Vegas. I had to act like I was nervous, waiting to find out the results of who the winner was, all this time while holding in the fact that I knew I lost. On the inside, I felt like shit. But just like the thousands of photos that I took just to post just one, I put on a facade because that's what people wanted to see. I knew that's what I wanted to see. I know that's who I wanted to display to people, to show that I was confident, even though that was the most insecure I've ever been in my life. Remember those people that were telling me, hey, Christian, you need to lose weight? They were the same people telling me, hey, you need to eat something. One thing I've learned down the line is that if people are going to judge you, it doesn't matter if it's whether you're losing or you're winning. They're always going to judge you. They're never going to feel satisfied. And that is truly a reflection of them, not of you. So again, that conference was in Vegas. I literally had people running up to me, wanting to take pictures with me and selfies with me, literally fucking crying and telling me how much my story inspired them. And then the day came where they had to announce the winners. And when my team saw me in the crowd, that's when they realized that I knew that I didn't win. I heard them announce the winners. And then I walked out of the arena. And then created this video. Hi. So, as a lot of you know by now, they just announced the winners for the Ultimate Health Transformation Challenge. And as you see, I'm not the winner for it. I actually knew who won about 2 weeks ago. And, obviously I couldn't say anything. And yeah, at first, it sucked. It hurt. It made me feel like the fat kid all over again, who didn't feel good enough to win, who didn't feel good enough to be a transformation winner from Beachbody. And I began to accept it, and obviously not being able to be on that stage just reminded me of how I felt again. So, what was something that you heard when you watched through that video? The one thing that I can remember is saying how losing made me feel like the fat kid all over again. This is what I try to tell people when I say that losing weight will make you happy. Gaining all this muscle won't make you happy. If you are someone who deals and struggles with issues with your weight and the way that you look, you have to work on your mind first. One of the most cliche things that I've heard growing up was, you will never be happy until you learn how to love yourself. And me, being the adolescent, ignorant fucking kid that I was, just brushed it off. But being the older person now, I can look back and tell you how true it fucking is. All the people who reached out to me, all the people who want to take photos with me, all the people who told me how my story inspired them to start their own. I didn't care about any of that at the time. All I cared about is the fact that I didn't win, that I didn't feed my external validation that I needed, that I didn't hit the top prize. That 25,000 meant more to me than actually being happy. Because I felt like if I had won, that would prove everybody wrong. In that world where people are sharing your stories, some of them are doing it because they are trying to make sales. Some of them are sharing it because they truly are inspired. As I started to see my following diminish, and because I was living in this victim mentality, and because I didn't actually work on my mentality and I faked like I had been so secure, how do you think I felt? I was like, I'm losing followers. They were just using me to sell their product. When I actually take a look back at my posts that I shared on social media, I can see how negative I started to become after I lost. Me now, reading through those posts, I wouldn't have followed me back then either. But that's something that I failed to realize. I was needing so much external validation that I was waiting for somebody to come save me, to come pick me up. And when I didn't find that, I reverted back to the thing that I was most comfortable with. Gaining all the way back and struggling and feeling like this is what my life should be like. When something that you're doing that is meant to be positive, like weight loss, creates more issues for yourself or doesn't alleviate any of the problems that you had prior to, you need to adjust your approach. I am going to be somebody that constantly says, I am only going to speak on my own behalf. However, being in the community that I was in, one of the most common themes that I saw was, I want my significant other to view me differently. I don't want to feel like I'm being judged. I'm scared how people will look at me. A lot of the focus is on other people. And one of the most common themes that you'll see in therapy is that you can't control what other people do. Your focus has to be on things that you can change. If people are going to judge you, they always will. You got to stop focusing on that. How you talk to yourself says volumes. If you're telling yourself, I feel like a piece of shit, guess what? You're going to act like one too. But when you start to breathe positivity into the things, into your life, instead of saying, I'm a fat piece of shit, I need to lose weight, but instead saying, hey, I'm better than this. I know I can do better. Let's see what I can actually focus on. And when I finally started to put the focus on myself, and I was able to create some actual real goals. Because when the focus is on everybody else, you are never going to attain those goals. You can't fix the shit that everybody else says about you. They're always going to say it. But you can fix the way that you talk to yourself. You can fix the way how you see yourself. So when my goals started to change from just losing weight and more functionality, I started going to CrossFit, right? Working with the professionals, working on my mobility. And then I realized I wanted to go into strength training, so my training had to change. But each time my goals changed, I had real tangible goals that I can fix, that I can adjust. And just like those things that I could adjust with my training, when it came to my mentality, I was like, what can I fix? One of the very first assignments that I had when I started going to therapy was to write down everything that I was telling myself or how I felt about myself. When I started to write those things down, I started to see the way that I spoke to myself, calling myself a fat piece of shit, calling myself someone who will never be happy, calling myself just so many negative things. And when I finally took a look at that list and I shared it with my therapist, she told me, she was like, would you say this stuff to anyone else? If you were just to describe them, I was like, no. Then she was like, why would you say that about yourself then? The answer was simple. It was because at that time I felt like I had no worth. After that assignment, and of course, after going through therapy, I was able to start creating some real tangible goals for myself. So to work on my mentality, I started to journal almost every single day because that was something that I could focus on. That was the one place where I could be honest with myself, where I can say whatever I felt like saying without the fear of judgment. When I'm able to look back into those journal entries and seeing how I used to talk to myself then and now, I can see my own growth. And I know, as a lot of people, when they go through something like therapy, one of the things that they question is, how can I see my growth? Just because, like, when it comes to something like weight loss, you can see your progress through looking at the scale, which I don't recommend doing. Looking at measurements, which I do recommend doing. But those are the physical aspects that you can see. But when it comes to your mentality, the hardest thing that you're able to see, because you live with yourself in every single moment, is your own growth. But journaling, which I will highly recommend, pen to paper, when you look back and you really work on yourself, you are able to see the situations and how you used to handle them in the past versus how you handle them now. How you used to talk to yourself in the past to how you talk about yourself now. How you're able to get through certain issues which you might have been irrational about in the past, and how you handle them now. The most important thing, though, is to stop putting so much of that focus on everybody else. You have to allow yourself to be selfish every now and then. You have to invest in that self-care. And it's like Cat Williams says, it's the esteem of your motherfucking self. Because at the end of the day, as many people tell you that they love you, as many people tell you that you're beautiful, as many people tell you that you're inspiring, the only thing that matters is what you say to yourself. Being someone who struggled for as long as I did, thinking that I would never get out of that mentality and that mindset, I can tell you that you can. I can tell you that it's worth it. I can tell you that you are going to struggle like fucking crazy throughout it. But you have to see yourself as worth it. I finally told myself that I am. And that's why I'm here. I'm hoping through telling my stories and my own experiences that it will inspire others to do the same. And this time, I'm doing it for the right reasons. Like the customer review says, if I can do it, you can do it too. But I need you all to fucking believe that. I need you all to see your worth. I need you all to see the fucking power that you have when you put yourself first. Until next time, please take care of yourself. I hope you have an amazing day, week, month, hour, minute. Y'all are some beautiful fucking people. Don't ever forget that.